Happy Tuesday and good morning here. This is another edition of Mic'd Up on Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now and really across the Now family of networks. So have a cup of coffee, drink a cup of orange juice or whatever you may want to start your day with. Maybe that can even be a fun beverage of sort for some of you. As
Bloody
we now
Mary.
Yeah, Bloody Mary could work certainly there. As we now bring you another edition here of Mic'd Up, presented by Martin Lawn Services, 412-849-5894 to hit up Doug Martin and his services. And this is going to be a Steelers-heavy program. We certainly are going to touch on the madness that is still March Madness coming up the rest of the week. And, of course, opening day for the Pittsburgh Pirates this coming Thursday. So expect some Pirate topics coming up this week as well. But for this show, it's going to be recapping the weekend a little bit after not having a show on Monday. And then also some Steeler news even of the day that still now is a topic of the rest of their offseason, involving what to do for maybe another quarterback spot on this roster if Sam Darnold has now maybe come down in value and become attractive to the Steelers, if they're going to do it, if that makes sense to do. Tyson Alualu shocking us over the weekend, deciding not to sign with the Jacksonville Jaguars, despite that being their reports the week earlier. Back with the Steelers, so choosing to live in Pittsburgh instead of Jacksonville. I kind of could get that there. I've been to Jacksonville a few times. Not even like Florida. It's basically Georgia.
Yeah.
Nonetheless, he wants to return to the Steelers. That's happening. And then also the rest of Steeler news with Alejandro Villanueva kind of surprising some people that maybe he'll be here longer than some would have thought. That offseason thought to be an easy thing for the Steelers, but now Alejandro Villanueva's house is making that a conversation whether or not he's going to sell that house. So, Mike, to get things started here, Sam Darnold's the topic of the day, a topic of the hour, certainly was a topic yesterday around Steelers Twitter, around Steeler parts, because the Jets now have pretty much made it clear they're willing to move him for now less than a first-round pick. It always seemed like, for me at least, he could make sense as a low-risk, high-reward guy. Certainly could help add depth to a team. I always felt like he had something left to give and hadn't been in a great situation with the Jets, so why not give him a shot? For any team out there that needs quarterback depth, he could still be something. But a first-round pick is hard to give up, especially when you have so many needs. But if they're willing to come down and, say, trade him for a second or third or something else, does now this make more sense to the Steelers? And do you think this could really be a thing? This is very uncharacteristic if they would make a move for a quarterback, say, during the NFL draft.
Well, I don't know if it's realistic, but I think it makes sense. This is something that I've been advocating for probably since the end of last season, when you saw where the Jets plan on drafting a month from yesterday. Actually, we're that close to the NFL draft. But it's no question they're going to go on with a new head coach. They're going to bring in a new quarterback. They're going to pick Zach Wilson from BYU. He'll be their quarterback. So does it make sense? They could tell you that they're not looking to trade him, but all that's doing is trying to drive his trade value up to try to get as much as possible. We all know that.
Right.
Yes, I think there's no question the Steelers should be interested in him. I saw some people on Twitter yesterday bringing up Dwayne Haskins or whatever, Mason. Come on, give me a break. Dwayne Haskins is just they're trying to throw something against the wall to hope it sticks.
That's low risk, high reward, if anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. That's a guy that, okay, maybe. I'm just not a fan of Mason Rudolph. I don't care what he does. I think he's a good backup to have. He's not a starter.
Right.
I just don't believe Sam Darnold has ever had the opportunity in the NFL with a real team around him. He's had decent offensive line with the Jets, not great, but not awful. Right. He's had Frank Gore, for God's sake, as his running back, and he's never had weapons to throw to in
That's the thing.
New York. So I think they set him up. They didn't purposely, obviously, but he was never given a chance to succeed. I think with the cast of characters they have here in Pittsburgh, as far as the offensive weapons, he could flourish, not to mention his former USC teammate, Juju Smith-Schuster.
Yeah, I think it makes perfect sense when you think about it. Sam Darnold has been a stud at times in his career, and of course that's before the NFL, but he came into the league with so much hype. There's talent there, and I think you hit the nail on the head, and this is just what I can't get over. When you were a young quarterback, And this is even true for Tom Brady, the GOAT. He was put into a great situation taking over for Drew Bledsoe with the Patriots and tons of talent around him. Peyton Manning the same. There have been other quarterbacks that had talent that just weren't in great situations, and eventually their careers plummeted, or they had to do a lot to dig themselves out. It is part of your career for a quarterback and part of your story to be in a position that can be successful, to be with a team, to be in a situation that can lead you to success, a position of success. And if you're not in that, if you're with the Jets, it's not, honestly, everything you touched on is correct, but it doesn't even tell the whole story of what he had to deal with the last few years. Yes, there's not been any wide receiver help there, and there will be with Pittsburgh. There's tons of depth at receiver. Juju even for another year that was surprising. The offensive line, okay with the Jets. It should be better with Pittsburgh, even though it's also younger, but at least equal to what he had with New York. Running back position, certainly in flux, but still better in terms of depth with the Jets had with an older Frank Gore and no one else. And you figure the Steelers are going to make some moves. Tight end help with Eric Ebron being there. That's another weapon for the quarterback. And while Mason Rudolph did perform better, he certainly played better in that Browns game at the end of the year to help what he thought maybe could eliminate Cleveland. It did not. The Browns end up winning. But Mason Rudolph has progressively played better. I do think the Steelers like him. From what I'm hearing, I do think the Steelers like him and want to kind of check him out a little bit further. I don't think he's really a starter for me, but I think they want to kind of test the waters. Haskins is just a low-risk, high-reward guy with his off-the-field stuff, so they're just trying throwing something at the wall based on his talent. But just off a thoroughbred quarterback that has all the bells and whistles and just the perfect mold for an NFL success, that's Sam Darnold. And I don't want to give up on him in the NFL based on that one situation with the Jets. So I think it makes sense, especially if they go down for a third-round pick or that value keeps plummeting,
Mike, that's
especially for depth.
That's the harm, and that's why you hear so many people. You have different sides of the argument about playing guys early. Yes, it's good to get them experience on the field, experience, even if it's bad. However, too many times players are labeled after not having success when they're thrown into a sewer like the New York Jets.
Especially now, right?
Yeah, exactly. It's way too early to give up on. If you thought he was a top 5 pick, whatever he was, 1 or 2 in the draft, it's absurd to think that a team is giving up on him.
Right.
What they should be doing is either trading down, drafting a left tackle, something like that. You don't give up on a quarterback. The same situation with Zach Wilson. He's going to get in, but now they have a little bit, some better parts there. But still, it's the same exact situation. The hype that surrounds him was the same that it was with, Darnold a couple years ago. So it's just, I don't know. I just think it's absurd. And as far as what the Steelers would have to give up, keep in mind they have 2 third-round picks this year. So if you can get them for a third-round pick, I would do it. I would even give.
I would do it for a second-round pick. I don't think they will go to a second-round pick. I think it probably will be that
second-round pick. But that would, if you get him, that would make you not have to draft a quarterback next year. That would take
right, and that's another thing. I think we have to go through your mind. Do you feel Sam Darnold, even with it being bad level of play because he was in a horrible situation, with a few years under his belt in the NFL and great success in college, is that better? He's still very, very young. Is that better than what you expect to come out of the draft next year at quarterback, which then you would have to – honestly, as much as you can't grade a guy off of the New York Jet mess for a couple years, there is something to be said about a couple years of NFL experience than to come right out of college. So you're starting from scratch with a new guy. I would rather go with Darnold than any new guy, no matter who he is. And honestly, again, just continuity might help, but at least having a team that wants to root for you. Adam Gase was Sam Darnold's coach for a year or so, and he was throwing him under the bus to the media. It wasn't even fair. If I was Sam Darnold's agent, I would almost want to file a lawsuit for how horrible the situation was.
I think it would be a perfect situation. We know Ben is not going to be here after this year.
Right.
He shouldn't be here after this year.
Right.
It would be a perfect situation for him to come in, take a year of learn the system.
I think Darnold wants out of the Jets too. He wants out of New York.
Learn from Ben, learn from the coordinator, Matt Canada. and it's a mulligan on your career, and you're still, as you mentioned, he's still in his mid-20s. He still has a long career if he's surrounded by
Right.
people that a cast like the Steelers have.
Absolutely. Mic'd up here, Mike Vukovcan, Mike Asti here, again presented by Martin Lawn Services on Pittsburgh Sports Live and PSN. Remind you, bottom of the screen, hit that subscribe button. It's free to do so. Thanks to our sponsors like Martin Lawn Services. And now moving again around the Steelers wire, the kind of surprise recently was Tyson Alualu, which we'll get to in a second, but also of this offseason has been Alejandro Villanueva, and that seemed to be one player that most people close to the Steelers thought was gone. His play has certainly diminished. Many in the locker room didn't really love him as much as maybe they previously did. He's been in some controversy the last few years. It seemed like just they're going to part ways. But now it appears, based on losing others and maybe needing this position, needing a veteran to stay there with some uncertainty around others on the line, that it almost appears that Alejandro Villanueva is realizing maybe the time is up and he's okay with the time being up and he's looking to sell his house and maybe move on. But the Steelers desperately want to keep this guy, and they're trying to tell him, don't sell the house yet. We're going to figure something out. It seems, Mike, like the Steelers want to keep Alejandro Villanueva almost more than Alejandro Villanueva wants to stay in Pittsburgh. Is this at all surprising for you? And how do you think this is resolved? Do you think he ends up staying in Pittsburgh? It seemed like one question that was a guaranteed answer a month, 2, 3, 4, even prior to last season. But now there's tons of uncertainty around this issue too.
Yeah, this has if it happens, it has the fingerprints of Ben Roethlisberger all over.
Again, he's the GM this whole offseason, it feels like.
Right, exactly. And I would no way I'd rather go and see what you have with Zach Banner or somebody else.
Right.
When you're a lineman like that and you start to decline, you just don't get better. I think we saw he had a nice couple-year run here with the Steelers, but Ben Roethlisberger should worry about playing quarterback and not.
Does seem
there's
like
no way. There's no way that Mike Tomlin wants Villanueva back. This has been all over it.
Is it insane that Ben has so much clout? He took a pay cut to stay on the team. Rooney said he couldn't stay on the team unless he took a pay cut, and yet he's running the team. Juju too.
Return. That was the first thing. I was thinking about that over the weekend too. Was that
that's
one
Ben?
Of the first things, yeah, one of the first things, comments out of Ben's mouth after the season. And I'm not personally attacking Ben Roethlisberger.
No, you got to do what you got to do.
Players should worry about what he's doing. He had his say for a number of years. But at the end of the season, I'd have to go back and find the story, but he openly campaigned, I'll do whatever to bring Juju back. And I can't help to think that he said, let's bring him back for one more year, one more run.
And it's okay just to say that for a teammate because you want to defend your guy. But I think it's a whole nother story when clearly Ben is doing more than just saying this in interviews. He is making this happen in some way. There's some involvement from Ben. And yeah, a great player, you want to have your say so. I'm not going to begrudge him from that. Of course, he wants his guys that he knows for one more year. But I think my criticism more would lie to the Steelers. Why are you listening to Ben so much? It's one thing for him to say, I want to keep my guys, especially when he loses Pouncey. He wants at least one veteran there. Because to be fair to Zach Banner, who was just recently re-signed, and basically it was announced he'd be the starting left tackle, that now would potentially be in flux if Villanueva would return or how they would switch it in there. But Banner hasn't started more than 3 quarters of his NFL career with the Steelers because he got hurt in that Giants Monday Night Football game last year. There is uncertainty around him too. I could get Ben wanting the veterans there, but I think at some point you got to say to Ben, look, we hear your say so. We appreciate everything you've done. We're glad you're back. We want you to go out on a high note, but you're not the general manager of this team. There will be some moves you don't like. You knew that when you restructured. We're, put up with it.
We should also, just to be fair, that this hasn't happened yet. I think. Listen to me talk. I'm listening to myself talk here, and I'm talking as though it's already a done deal.
No, it could easily be the other way. Yeah,
it's a report out there that the Steelers have interest. Some pretty reputable NFL insiders are saying the Steelers have 3 teams that are actively talking to him. So there's a difference between talking and actually signing him. So let's see if it goes through. But if it goes
Right.
through, I don't like it. I don't like it at all. So let's just hope that it's talk and
Yeah.
he moves on to another team or calls it a career, because it's time for them to see different new blood here on the offensive line and see different guys that can work, because I believe we've seen the best football of Alejandro Villanueva's career.
Yeah, and honestly, based on how they were playing, and Marquise Pouncey was playing better than Alejandro Villanueva. Pouncey chooses to retire. Villanueva has been diminishing year after year.
Right.
And again, I don't know how together he was with many players in that locker room based on some tea leaves and even some comments that I've heard off the record. We know that controversy for the last few years.
Right.
His opinions are his opinions. Nothing to begrudge him from any of those. And he also served the country. He's a great guy, honestly. He maybe gets a bad rap around these parts, but it's about the team. He's no longer as that good. You don't want to waste the money there. Banner does now. I think we got to see what we got with Banner. I think he deserves a shot now. You got to see what you got with Banner. If it's bad, okay. If it's good, okay. But I don't imagine it can be worse than Villanueva the last few years. And if anyone wants to go on House Watch, if you want to watch House Watch and go there on Zillow and find out what's going on with Banner or with Villanueva, just check in on his house, because that's why some people are concerned, because the reports are the Steelers are telling him don't sell that house yet. And I think it's a question that we're talking about here in this show that maybe tomorrow we have to discuss him being gone. Could be the possibility, very possible. But the reason why this is a discussion now is because this was the one topic that everyone with any opinion around the Steelers was unanimous that last year would be the swan song for Villanueva. And then it seems like the Steelers cannot even just get that correct and just do one thing everybody agreed with and then be done with it. They're still dragging this out oddly. So we'll see.
One thing I think is pretty telling, Mike, is the fact that the guy in charge of the Steelers offense, their starting left tackle, which is a pretty important position on the team, and their starting running back, all are still unemployed.
Unless the left tackle's Banner, that ends up being Banner.
You'd figure James Conner by now would have a job. He showed that if he's healthy, he's okay. He's a serviceable running back.
Yeah.
Villanueva has been a starter for the last 3-4 years at left tackle.
And veterans do usually get paid. Yeah.
Right. Yeah, he's open. Nobody's taking him. And Randy Fichtner, he's in charge of an offense that's put up a lot of points the last under his watch. And none of those guys have jobs. So I don't know what that says, but I don't think it says a lot of good stuff.
No, and it is surprising, because as much as maybe an individual team or fan base or maybe a coach or a player needs to part ways with that team for whatever the case may be, it's very rare when you have some semblance of success. Certainly, look at Todd Haley. He's been all around the docket. He's getting jobs like crazy. It is odd for Randy Fichtner when the offense did put up points, especially 2 years ago with Ben being hurt and Rudolph and Duck, and Rudolph clearly getting better and the talent being there and points being put up despite the running game being porous. Nothing was perfect, but you would figure it wasn't bad enough to blackball him from the league. You would think there would be some job, and certainly it could still happen. Connor has been tweeting up a storm. Alan and I are trying to figure out what the hell these tweets mean, but he's getting poetic. He's getting religious. I'm not sure if he has some information we don't, or he's just trying to stay optimistic. But we actually did talk 2-3 weeks ago on this show that, Pitt better get their videos ready, the Steelers too, because he's played in the area so long and going to be leaving. And he right now, he is still unsigned. I guess the door could be open the longer this goes. Maybe it'll be a really large hometown discounter depending on what goes on in the draft. It is surprising some players to still be left out there. One player that's not left out there any longer, though, is Tyson Alualu, and that was a major hit to the Steelers when he did choose to leave to go back to Jacksonville, where he started his career. Obviously, that's not a winning franchise. He was looking to take the money there. All of a sudden, out of absolute nowhere, I'm driving actually to get my Chipotle, and I'm seeing an alert. This is my dedication, Mike, to you guys. I pulled off the side of the road to get that, to make sure that got up. It's not my first time.
The guy you are, Mike.
But the point of it is, it was surprising, and he ends up choosing to return to the Steelers. And again, this is similar to the situation with Juju in a way, even though this is a little different, of course, less controversy maybe around this. but he's taking less money to return to the Steelers. Cam Hayward, very excited, like Ben, recruiting the offensive players. It does appear that maybe after losing a few defenders, Cam Hayward kind of got to work as a GM and trying to bring his guys back, because you have to remember, for everyone to understand, the reason why we felt he was going to the Jaguars and now he turned around to the Steelers, he agreed to sign with the Jaguars but didn't officially do so. He agreed to sign with the Jaguars during that legal tampering period, which occurs in the NFL constantly. That's why you'll see on Steelers Now at that point it said to sign, not actually signed for the headlines. And then he chose to just change his mind and come back to Pittsburgh. How surprising was that to you, and what does that do for the Steelers defense? Obviously, that's a boost and was a ding hit when he was going to leave, but it still feels like they're putting a little bit of a Band-Aid on a scar. They did lose a lot. I don't know if this one player coming back is going to fix things, but certainly a major boost for sure, and a player they thought was totally gone.
Yeah, if I had to make a checklist of guys as far as that they realistically wanted to come back, of course that you'd want to have Mike Hilton, some guys like that back, but realistically, we knew that wasn't going to happen.
Right.
I thought Tyson Alualu was somebody that they wanted back, and were probably very disappointed. They figured he was a guy.
I think they thought they were getting him back too.
Yeah, despite their limited salary cap room, I figured they probably thought that they still had enough money to fit him under. When he left, that was probably like he's a good guy to bring back just because of what he can do, what he showed last year. And you always need depth behind defensive tackles with Hayward and Stephon Tuitt. So it's good to get him back. The only thing that kind of, I wonder internally what they think about this. After he verbally agreed to Jacksonville, they signed Chris Wormley. You wonder, for a team that didn't have a lot of money, they signed a 2-year deal, and they're giving him $2 million a year, $4 million total. That's not a lot, but that might be too much. If they knew that
they didn't have a lot of room,
right? Yeah. If they knew Alu was coming back, I'd have to question whether or not they'd really want Wormley back, and that $2 million could be spent toward something else.
Yeah, a running back, an offensive lineman, a lot of moves still need to be made for the Steelers, maybe even another tight end. So, yeah, that's a great point that I don't think is being brought up, that, it's little chump change money you would think in the grand scheme, but the Steelers didn't have much room to play with, so a little bit of money makes a major difference. It's still great that he's coming back for the Steelers defense, a veteran force who's proven it time and time again. They do need depth there. Certainly if the secondary is going to be a weakness potentially, you want to make sure the D-line's not a weakness. You want to make sure you can maybe stop it at that point before getting further out on the defense. So I think that was a player they thought they were going to get back. I do think it was surprising when he signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, especially because that was clearly not about winning. That was more about money, but you don't begrudge a guy for taking his cash. But it turns out that I'm assuming Cam Hayward or whoever else got on the phone, because Cam Hayward's tweeting, alluding to something, and then all of a sudden we get the bomb dropped and he does come back. Cam Hayward kind of becoming the Woj reporter like Schefter and Ian Rappaport here for the Steelers. So he's back for the Steelers. They don't lose everybody. And also tell everybody, Pittsburgh Sports Live right now has a couple clips coming up. Cam Sutton coming up here later on today with his takes on what's going on. Robert Spillane yesterday. So we're getting these videos now as well to kind of
one other point about that, Mike, is
know about what the players think.
While maybe they didn't want to sign, and I shouldn't even say this, I'm just speculating, but now that they signed Wormley and Alu, maybe that also negates them from having to spend a draft pick. You would think that they maybe thought they were a little thin on the defensive line. Maybe they think, okay, we have this. We also have some other guys, younger guys last year. Maybe this holds us off on a year of having to address that a little higher in the draft, defensive tackle. Maybe they spend it, use that on a different priority because, obviously we know they have a lot.
They do, and maybe that'll make them feel more comfortable to trade a pick for, say, Sam Darnold or something like that, because they don't necessarily need to waste that pick for that position for next year, even though, of course, that would not fix the future. Well, that'll do it for this edition of the show. It was a Steelers-heavy program. The Steelers in the news, so whether they're in the season or not, the Steelers certainly own the news wire, especially right now, where we're seeing some surprising news, let alone some news to take us to the NFL draft, which Mike pointed out is now less than a month from now, as crazy as that sounds. And, of course, we'll have more college basketball talk the rest of this week and Pirates opening day.
Buccos, baby, Buccos.
Yeah, get excited. They have a local product. A Mars PA product's going to make the roster, so that's kind of cool. Pittsburgh people love having a local kid on the team. And we'll get to all of that and our thoughts there, but they're playing baseball on Thursday, so that's a win nonetheless that it's actually going to happen, because, again, last year that shortened season didn't feel right. They're going to get a little bit more in this year. Win, lose, a draw, and maybe it'll be win under 100 games. I guess that's kind of the way for it to be a positive for the Pirates. That'll do it for this show. Mike Vukovcan and Mike Asti here for all of us at Pittsburgh Sports Live and Pittsburgh Sports Now. Again, thanks to Martin Lawn Services. Hit him up. Hit Doug Martin up at 412-849-5894. And keep it right here for more Steelers madness during the month of madness here throughout the network.